So let's talk about the fall slowdown.
Oh,
We're going to
boy.
have a bit fewer birds at the feeders.
We talked about this a little bit last time I mentioned it, but I'm going to reemphasize it because we get a lot of calls. I hear a lot of people asking, what have I done wrong? Where did my birds go? Something's terribly wrong. Well, from the birds' point of view, something's terribly right. This is a time of plenty for them. All the weeds have grown all year, and everything's coming ripe now. All the grasses have dried, the seeds are ready to eat. All the berries are ripe, and the birds have a bounty of food out there in the wild. They don't need to come to the feeders. If they're around, they'll pop in, but they've got a lot of food out there. There's also a tremendous amount of insects out there now, and we don't think about them, but there's a lot of spiders and insects that have bred all year long are in abundance. They've got a lot to eat, so all of a sudden, you don't see many birds at your feeder, and you feel like something's terribly wrong. And it is for you if you like watching the birds, but it's not wrong for the birds because they're having a good time out there eating.
Yeah, what you said surprised me. I thought that there were just always more insects in the summer. There's not then, though, right?
It depends on the kind.
Especially spiders?
Yeah, you may not, after the first frost, you may not see so many things like mosquitoes, but the birds aren't eating. They're eating a lot of spiders and little beetles and grub worms and things like that. They're still fine until you get a frost or two to kill them all off. So at this time of year, all those guys have been breeding all season. The population builds and builds and builds to a peak. They won't die off until after the frost or two, and then they'll die down. Then the birds are left with just the seeds and the berries that are left over out in the wild, and you'll see them start coming back to the feeders more and more.
So as it gets colder, we are going to see the birds coming back to the feeders more, right?
Absolutely.
And what kind of foods are best to have during the winter out of the feeder?
Coals.
Well, of course you say that.
You want to put a variety of food out there. I always suggest one of the nice tube feeders, keep it stocked with like Cole's Special Feeder because it has a lot of sunflower meats in it. It's got a lot of sunflower seed in it, and it's got peanuts that the woodpeckers absolutely love. So it's got a good variety of seeds in it for all the birds that will come up to a feeder. It's a good general food. Also, you can put one with some millet in it and blue ribbon blend, Cole's Blue Ribbon. And some of that will be thrown out, and then the doves and the larger birds will feed on the ground on the millet that the smaller birds throw out of the feeder. That's always a good choice. But you want to add some things like a little bowl. You could even take one of the Hummingbird feeders, take the top off, and it'll serve a dual purpose. You can put dried mealworms in it. You can put the Cole's kibbles in it, and the birds will have a good time eating right there. And you can feed the birds that don't eat seed some of these items with the same feeder that you have fed the hummingbirds with. Get a couple of these, they're handy.
And the hummingbirds, they do come back right to the same spot.
Yes.
And it is so funny when our feeders are not out there and they'll come right back to that spot. Like, where is that feeder? So when you have something else in it, your hummers are probably going to be like, what in the world is going on?
They'll probably look at it and not really know what to do. But that's where you have 2 or 3 of these. Put one out with your kibbles and dried mealworms in it for the birds that don't eat the seed, and have the other one with the nectar in it for the winter hummingbirds if you're lucky enough to get one.
Yeah. So what do you like most about feeding birds at this time of year? Like, I like just the fact that it's nice and kind of cool outside, especially in the morning, to be able to sit out and maybe enjoy them more than in the summer.
I think that's a lot of it. There's not, now that the fall migration we're on the backside of it, so the warblers and all that are headed down to South America to get out of the cold, they've passed through, so there's not as much excitement for seeing the birds you don't normally see that are only passing through. But your buddies are going to hang around all year. Now they're coming to the feeders, and it feels like you're going to help them out because they know where the feeder is. It's a reliable food source. As they run out of this bountiful fall food, they're going to depend more on your feeders, and it'll really help them get by. It's like, I feel like I've done something nice when I see them. And it's always nice to see the birds hanging out.
Absolutely.